All right, I believe that we're live. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? By the way, just to make sure that you can hear me okay, if you can just say something in the chat, say hello, where you're calling in from. I know a lot of people registered for today, so I am expecting it to be busy. Yeah, so I would go ahead and get started. So I'm really looking forward to today's session. So today we're going to be talking about the quiet PM, how to stand out without faking it. And I think we have the perfect person to talk about this, Lissa Appiah. She's an introvert, career coach, and executive coach. And I will let her introduce herself. Yeah. So Lissa, without further ado, can you introduce yourself to those people that don't know who you are?
Of course. Thank you so much, Mukhtar, for having me. And so I'm Lissa Appiah. I'm a certified career strategist and executive coach and the founder of We Apply. And I am an introvert myself, and I built my career within the government here in Canada, moving from a person who was introverted and unable to get promoted in the workplace to landing 5 promotions in less than 8 years, joining leadership in the process. And now I help other introverts to be able to succeed in their leadership roles and find new leadership roles. So that is who I am.
Nice, amazing. I really want to get into that. So just looking at the chat, hello, Mikisha. I hope I said your name correctly. From Orlando. Welcome to the show. By the way, others just feel free to say hello and where you're calling in from. It's usually nice to see where everyone is calling in from. I usually get surprised, with some different locations. All right, so Lissa, one thing that I saw you mention on your profile, you mentioned that on average, introverts earn about $300,000 less than their counterparts over their career. And that gap is even wider with advanced degrees, right? So
Yeah.
an introvert that graduates with a bachelor's degree earns about $300,000 less than their extroverts. So that's really insane.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
over
like,
the span of their career. And I will just mention that study was done for men.
I see.
So, and I'm adding my own. I have a strong feeling it was white men. So, if we add all those other factors that already influence people when it comes to pay,
Right.
so, being introverted, being a Black woman, being, all those layers also contribute. So, yeah.
My goodness, it's like you pay your taxes, and then there are other taxes like the introvert tax, the accent tax, the race, so it's very interesting. Well,
Yeah.
all right. So a lot of people chiming in. LinkedIn user from Ghana. Hello, Noteka from Charlotte. Hello, Shauna from Arkansas. Hello, LinkedIn user from London. Hello, Eric from North Carolina. Hello, hey Lissa, do you know that flag? Senegal. Is that Ruth? I think that's Senegal. Is that Ghana?
That's Ghana. That's
Okay.
my people, Ruth.
All right. Sorry. Yeah. Nigerians, dumb Nigerian doesn't know another flag. Sorry about that. Yeah. Hello, Sarvani from Boston. Lots of folks. Hello, Sahlon from Minnesota. In Jialung from India. Hello, Jacksonville. Oh my goodness, lots of. Hello, Nada from Israel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Hello, Patrice from Hampton. Hello, Sushima from Nigeria, and hello, Busiswe. I really apologize, if I'm butchering that, from South Africa. So wow, lots of people from all over the world. There are lots of quiet people, huh? Lots of
Yes.
all over the world. All right. So Lisa, I want to get into your story.
Sure.
So, you're an introvert, and then you saw that you were having challenges, and then something changed, and then you had all this success. So can you walk me through what was happening and what made you decide to switch, and what did you do about it that resulted in all this success where you are now getting promotions, you are now being heard, etc.?
Yeah. So as I was mentioning, I started my career in the government. I had some prior experience working in the private sector, nonprofit sector, but I'll say my career really started once I landed a role in government. And that was while I was doing my master's degree. And, on the side of education, I would say I did really well because there was structure and there were rules that just made sense. You just study, you show up, you do the exam, you get the grade. So for me, it worked out and I did pretty well in school. But then once I started in the professional world, I realized that the rules are different. Even if you do a lot of work, you get normally the good grade. You know, people are telling you you're doing good work. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the promotion or that you're going to get noticed for advancement opportunities.
Right.
And that basically happened to me. So this was early days in my government work. So I worked in international relations. So we did a lot of negotiations with other countries on various agreements that Canada was looking to sign with those countries. And I was leading a file for one country, and an opportunity came up to go to that country to actually finalize a negotiation, get the document signed. And, you know, after you've worked for like over 2 years to work on this document, it's like an important thing to be able to say, oh, I went there and,
Right.
you know, I made this happen.
Hmm.
Because I was leading the FA, I thought it was obvious that I was the one who was going to go. You know, I wasn't at the level that I signed the document, but at least to go to be
Right.
part of the process, right? And my director at the time was like, no, like you're great at what you do. You're great at doing the research. You're great behind the scenes. You keep doing what you're doing. This other guy who's more articulate, who's more outgoing, they chose him to go to the negotiation.
Hmm.
And obviously I was crushed because it's not like I didn't know how to speak in public or I couldn't do the negotiation. In other aspects of my life, I was doing that on a regular basis. Obviously, as an introvert, I prepare myself for these things to be able to speak publicly, and I have strategies in place to ensure that I show up as my best self. But it doesn't mean that I can't do it, right? I just do it maybe or prepare differently than another person. So, anyways, fast forwarding, the guy went to the trip. He got a promotion right after because he got a lot of visibility with senior management. I did all the research, I wrote all the briefing notes, and he basically was a voice to my work. And
Wow.
then from that moment, I told myself, never again is that going to happen, that I'm going to put in so much work and somebody's just going to represent my work and they're going to get the recognition for it. So that's when I started to learn more about what is introversion? How do I make this work? Does it mean I'm not going to get promoted in the workplace? And then I realized that no, it's just that I operate differently. I gain energy differently than a person who's extroverted. So once I understood that, I started implementing strategies to be able to help me succeed in the workplace. So that's how it started.
Wow. No, that seems very painful. And I mean, these are stories that you hear a lot, and I'm trying to think back to my own past. I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe I just need to think a bit more, because for me, like, my situation is, I don't know if I'll call myself an introvert, but like sometimes I do show up as an introvert and sometimes as an extrovert, right? Or sometimes I know I use the term ambivert. And
Yeah.
but I think like the thing with me is that like I can't always switch it on and
Mm.
like as I want. Like, for example, like it's gonna be this big meeting and there are lots of people there, right? So a lot of times like people are expecting like this very um well, at least this is how I feel. Like I feel like people are expecting this charismatic person that's just going to be socially fluid in the room and
Yeah.
just come out, right? And when I want to switch that on, it doesn't always happen, right? And then
Yeah.
I beat myself up, and yeah, but sometimes like it happens, right? So, and I don't even know if that's the right way, like switching things on and switching things off. I think this is something that I'm still sort of working on. But yeah, that's a bit of a tangent. But so, what did you now do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what changed? What did you now do to now like ensure that you're showing up authentically and that you are actually being noticed and being recognized and rewarded for the work that you do?
Yeah, okay. Maybe just before I get into that, if I'll just give a simple definition of what it is to be introverted so that we at least start the conversation all on the same page. Basically, all that it means is that you draw in your energy from solitude. Introverts typically get energy when they're alone. That's how they recharge their battery. So it doesn't mean you don't like people. It doesn't mean that you're shy. That's not what introverted means. It just means that you get energy from solitude. Extroverts, on the other hand, get their energy from being around people. They get their energy from social interaction. And obviously they can be alone as well, but that's not how they recharge their battery. So that's basically what it is when we're talking introvert, extrovert. Now, to answer your question specifically,
Sorry,
what yeah,
sorry,
go for it.
sorry,
Yeah,
Lisa. Before we go there,
yes.
I think that's a very, very important point. Because like I think I also fall into this trap of thinking extrovert means quiet and shy, and I feel like I'm not the only one, right? So
Yeah.
why? I guess what's the reason for that? And yeah, I don't know if I fully it- yeah. I need to think about the question, but yeah, what's the reason for that misconception? Because like I've heard this so many times, but I think I tend to default also back like an introvert is somebody who's shy and quiet,
Mhm.
who is quiet and shy.
Yeah. So it's a good question. And yeah, a lot of people believe that introverts are typically shy, but you can have an extroverted person who is shy. Being shy is more about like the specific situation that you're in that may cause you to be uncomfortable. But being introverted is really part of your personality. It's who you are as a person. It's not based on a specific moment that, okay, I was in this situation and then I became an introvert. You are an introvert, but that's why you can have extroverted people who are shy. So that's the difference, at least when it comes to being introverted versus extroverted. It's more about how you gain energy and not necessarily about being shy or not being shy.
But I feel like a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people don't, when they use those terms, they don't have that definition at back
Oh,
of
no,
their
no, no, they don't. Not at all.
mind.
No, you're completely right. Like a lot of times people will use both interchangeably. I've even seen dictionary definition of introvert and it says shy. So it's not necessarily that, you know, that but it is wrong if you think about it. And especially like there's a lot of research that has been done over the years about personalities, about introversion and what it actually means. So the best way I can put it is that introversion is really a personality and it's where you get your energy, whereas shyness is more a behavioral response to discomfort. If you have like fear of social judgment, you may feel nervous, you may feel self-conscious, you may feel shy, but it's because of that situation specifically that's happening. And that's why anyone can be shy. It's not necessarily just introverts that can be shy.
Right. But would you say, in terms of shy people, you would find them more under the introvert bucket as opposed to the extrovert bucket?
Yes and no, because what I've seen is that shyness can decrease with skill building, with confidence, with a supportive environment. When I was growing up, I know that I was a shy kid, but that was because of the surrounding that and the various situations that I was in. Whereas being an introvert, I know that I'm still an introvert, but what I've done now is I've learned to leverage, to manage and take advantage of who I am as an introvert to be able to show up in different settings and still succeed. And it kind of goes to your question that you were asking that we kind of paused, but something as simple as like how I schedule my day, how I schedule my time. I know that as an introvert, for me, it doesn't work that every single day I'm going to have meetings back to back, that I'm going to be talking to people every single day. So I know that during the week, I have certain days that I have to be on, if you want, where I have meetings and I'm talking to people. Like Thursday for me today, this is a day that I know that I'm going to be interacting and socializing more, but I plan my days accordingly. I always have buffers for myself to be able to go from one thing to another thing, because I know that if I continuously take like 5 meetings in a row, at some point the social energy is going to drop completely. So those are just examples of different things that as an introvert I'm a lot more aware of, and I protect that time and that energy so I show up as my best self wherever I go.
Okay. So, would you consider yourself a quiet person, Lisa?
Am I a quiet person? It depends with who, and that's the interesting thing. In a group setting, I would say yes, I'm a quiet person. I typically in a group setting, I'll be more the listener, and
Mhm.
I'll be the person who will just kind of listen and make some comments here and there. If
Mhm.
I'm one on one with a person that I like and I trust the person, I can talk.
Right,
So
right,
it just depends on who it is in the setting. Yeah.
right. And I think I'm similar. Like, I think, and for me, the other thing is that, like, if I notice that the other person I'm talking to is more quiet, then I
Hmm.
feel like I now step up and I now become the quote unquote the non-quiet person, right?
Fair
I just
enough.
sort of gauge, and if the other person is more talkative, then I just listen. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Does that resonate with you?
It does. And what you're describing is a strategy that I actually teach my clients, which is called mirroring.
Mm,
And it helps you even in interviews or in any social setting of being able to almost mirror how the other person is responding or interacting. So for example, if you go to an interview and the interviewer is high energy, they're talking a lot, they're saying a lot, you don't now want to be that person who's reserved and you're just like, oh hi, thank you so much for having me. You want to try your best without having to pretend to be someone else, try to match that energy. So yeah, it's something that we do sometimes naturally, but in some settings we have to be more conscious about it to be able to match or go to the same level as the
mm.
person that you're communicating with.
Yeah, so I think mine is a bit of maybe like the inverse of mirroring, right?
Okay, let me, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, because like if I'm speaking with you and I notice that you're very talkative, then I become
Uh-huh.
the listener,
Oh, okay, okay,
right?
okay.
And then vice versa. Like if I see that you're the more quiet person, then I become the talker.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah. Is that intentional? Is that
I
something
don't
that
know.
you
It's just something that is just a dynamic that I just see play.
just noticed?
Yeah,
Okay.
and also I think like you're like I'm more comfortable with one-on-ones.
Mhm.
But like these networking events where people stand around in a circle, like yeah, those I don't like those.
I know, I'm the same.
I
And
don't. But I love public speaking, like one to many. Like I'm a student of public. Like I enjoy it. Like
yes, I
I
agree.
enjoy the craft. I enjoy one-on-ones. But that like I don't know. There's I haven't quite studied it or analyzed it, but I think there's something about like just standing in a circle, trying to get into that circle, and then like joining the conversation. There's something about that I don't know that just takes a lot of energy from me.
It
Yeah.
does. It does. I can agree with that. Yeah. And again, another strategy, I typically just go to networking events that have structure. Because if
Mhm.
there's no structure and I'm paying $100 just to stand in a in an empty room with a bunch of people, I'm not going to your event.
Right. All right. So Lisa, let's go back to the question that I asked initially. So
Okay,
what
yes.
did you now do to change things? So like you
Mhm.
had this horrible experience or this challenging experience, I should say, and you made the decision to change things, right? So what did you now do and to that led in the successes that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I'll go back to that time, like the first strategy I implemented. So I started to pay more attention to the things that I was good at as an introvert and really started to understand what are my strengths? What do I bring to the table that, you know, at the end of the day, I'll just say it as it is that I can market because that's ultimately what we're trying to do when it comes to being in the workplace. You're marketing your strengths, you're marketing your skills so you can advance in your career. So that's the best way that I can put it. So I was conscious about understanding what my strengths are. And one of the strengths that I do have is listening. And it's just something that comes very naturally, very innate to me. So I started to think, okay, how can I leverage this in a work setting? And in the role that I was in, we had a requirement, like corporate reporting was just part of the day to day in terms of there are different times that performance reviews had to be done to report back to the organization. And so as people who were more on the international relations policy side, nobody really liked doing corporate reporting. It wasn't the thing that everyone put up their hand to do. So I would often hear the more senior analysts complaining about it. So I was like, okay, this could be an opening for me. So I started to learn about corporate reporting. And it wasn't something that was taking up any more of my time, that I was staying overtime to study or whatever. Just as when I have a couple of minutes, just learning what it is, better understanding what it was, because I was in a place where there were many analysts at the same level as me. So if there's even an opportunity, they could easily choose somebody else over me, because there's nothing that stands out for me to differentiate myself versus them. So I started studying corporate reporting. When opportunities would come up for meetings related to corporate reporting, I would put my hand up, I would go, and then the senior analysts were happy because they're like, oh, let her go in our place. And a couple of months later, I went to one of these corporate reporting meetings. I met an executive, and in the meeting, I was, sharing updates for my team. He was like, you know what, we're starting a new team. We're looking for people with your expertise in corporate reporting. The opening is coming out on this date. Make sure you apply. And I applied for that opening, went through the interview process and whatever. And that was the first of 5 promotions. And that's kind of how it started, where I realized that, okay, I do still have value to offer. And it's just a matter of me recognizing what is the value that I have to offer, and how can I start positioning it in a way that it becomes interesting or marketable to hiring managers and decision makers. And so that's how it started for me, in terms of being more strategic about the way I was positioning myself at work, so I would still get noticed for opportunities to advance.
Okay. No, that's really amazing. So really listening for like what are the pain points, and then
Mm-hmm.
learning that, because a lot of times, like, there's always frustration anyway, like in any workplace, your dream job, whatever the company, people always have frustration. So really listening, and then seeing how you can be a solution to that, or part of the solution. So I
Yeah.
really like that. But one thing, so Lisa, even with the initial story that you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing good work,
Yeah.
right? And you were doing something that was valuable, right? Even your boss recognized that, like, oh, you're very good at what you do. And then in this case now, you also did good work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what changed? So I heard you mention positioning. Is
Yeah.
that what is that the difference between the first case and this case? It's like how you are not positioning, because in both cases you're doing valuable work, right?
Yeah.
So is that what was the difference this time?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, something that I always fall back on, and the, I'm going to share the formula. The percentages may vary, but just you can take it as it is. So, there's a formula called the PI formula by Harvey Coleman, and he teaches this when it comes to career success, and he calls this the formula for career success. And there's 3 parts. So, P is for performance, I is image, and E is exposure. So he basically says in the PI formula that to succeed in your career, you need a combination of these 3 things. You need performance, image, and exposure. He says, however, that performance is just 10%, meaning that that's the bare minimum. It's like, okay, you showed up, you did good work. That's the bare minimum to get noticed for career advancement opportunities. If you want to take things to the next level, you need to focus on your image, which he says is 30%. And that is if we want, this is an old study, like it was done, I think in the 90s or something. So if we want to translate that wording into words that we use these days, that would be your personal brand. How are you showing up in terms of the perception and the impression that you're giving, that people have of you in the marketplace, and how are you controlling the narrative around what you're doing and how people are perceiving you. So that's the first thing that I did that was different. Before, I was doing hard work and I was just working, and then I would go home. I was never intentional to say that I need to control, or I need to be able to shape the way that people see me. And So I was very intentional about building this expertise. I wanted people to see me as that expert in corporate reporting. So I would position myself in places where people saw me as that expert. So that's image. And then E is exposure. He says that's 60%. Exposure is being exposed to the right stakeholders. Who are the decision makers that you need to get in front of? If I had not positioned myself as that expert in corporate reporting, there's no way that I would have been in that meeting as a junior analyst. No way I would have been in that meeting with executives that were at the director, director general, assistant deputy minister. Like, these are very high levels compared to where I was. So that positioning and that image, that brand that I started to build, that expertise, allowed me to get into rooms that I wouldn't normally be in and start to share and start to talk. And people would hear me and they would be like, oh, this person is actually knowledgeable. We want to hear more of this person. We want to get to know who this person is. So you need those three things when you're looking to advance in your career. It's performance, which is great. It's great to do good work, but you also have to think of, how are you branding yourself? How are you showing up at work to ensure that the right people who make decisions actually know you and can give you those opportunities when they come up?
No, this is really amazing, and I like how, um, yeah, I think I've heard this formula before, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think I just sort of heard it, like, as a side comment, but I didn't quite realize the percentages. So this, I mean, I know you said that it can vary.
Yeah, because every workplace is different, but
Right.
at least it gives you an idea that, I do have to pay attention to how I show up at work, and I do have to pay attention to how visible I am and who knows me. No, when I was in those early days, nobody knew who I was at work. Like, I just came, done work, you go home, and that's it. Nobody actually knew who I was. And that's the thing about when you're building an intentional career. A lot of times when we're thinking about networking, we're thinking, oh, who do I know? Who can I reach out to? It's not just about who you know, it's actually about who knows you. Because if they don't know you, they're not going to advocate for you. If they don't know you, they're not going to put themselves out to say, this is the person that you should select. You need to have people who actually know you and the value that you bring if you're looking to advance, especially within an organization.
Okay. All right. So now, as a quiet person, like,
Mhm.
the performance, we have that on lockdown. Like, we've been told, put your head down, do the work. So we
Yeah.
have that on lockdown. So now, as somebody that wants to work on their image, what would you recommend that they do?
Yeah. So, really building a personal brand, I feel like now it's so accessible to us that I feel like if you're not building your personal brand intentionally, you're just missing out on opportunities for really no reason. So I would say the first thing when it comes to building your image is being intentional about building your personal brand. So that means, what messaging are you creating around the expertise that you have? How are you showing up on LinkedIn, or when you're going to networking events, when you're going to various places? How do you show up and how do you communicate the value that you bring to the workplace? I would say that that is the easiest way that you can begin to build that image, is by also being intentional about building your personal brand. We're both career coaches, so I'm sure you see this in your clients as well. A lot of times when people come to me and I'm like trying to better understand their story, what they've achieved, so that we can craft the resume or the LinkedIn profile or whatever it may be. A lot of times people are like, yeah, I just do my job. I don't know. Like, I just don't know. They have so much trouble even just saying what it is that they did. And I
Right.
saw your post today where you were giving the PMs actual measurable outcomes to be able to communicate what you did. Like, that is so much value that people just overlook, to be able to know how to communicate and articulate what you did beyond just like, oh, I just do my job. I just show up. They told me to go to this meeting. I went to that meeting. So what did you do at the meeting? What was the outcome? What was the result? How did it impact the organization? being able to articulate that and understand the value of the work that you do in relation to the company's outcomes and goals, like that's it. That's what building your personal brand is all about. So that's what I would say where people need to start when it comes to building that image.
Right. And when you are, so people are now thinking about, all right, um, how my day to day, or how, what I've done in this quarter, how has this impacted,
Mm-hmm.
business outcomes, or, department outcomes, team outcomes, etc. So I'm thinking about that, but then how do I now operationalize this, right? So is it that, like, whenever I get a chance, I'm blowing my own horn? Like, how would you recommend?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's one thing to first understand the value. Now,
Mhm.
what do I now do with that?
Yeah, such a good question. So, first thing is make sure that you're at least tracking what are your wins. You don't want to get to the place that it's been like 2, 3 years, or, I sometimes see this with my clients that they've been in their career 10, 15 years and they still have no real clue of what their wins are. So, be intentional, whether it's a notebook that you want to get that you write down every week, every 2 weeks, some of your wins, what was the result, how did it impact the company, or in some of my previous work, or I even do this now, if a client sends me a testimonial or whatever it may be, or somebody is telling me like, hey, the work you did helped in this way, I just save that email into a specific folder, so I have all those like wins stored in one place. I have some clients that keep track of it in an Excel spreadsheet. So how you do it doesn't matter. It's just what actually matters is that you actually do it. And so make sure you're tracking your wins. That's the first step in being able to operationalize all that we're talking about and for it to actually be practical to you. Second step is that you need to understand the value that you offer. And that's why I always start with the self, because if you aren't convinced of how much you have to offer, and if you aren't aware of the impact that you're making, it's going to be very difficult to convince somebody else, whether it's in an interview or you're talking to an executive, you're trying to position yourself for a promotion. So then recognize the value yourself. And sometimes it could be as simple as going over those wins and reminding yourself like, yeah, I did this, I'm the person who accomplished those things. But other times it could be you being intentional about your own self-development so that you can continue to improve the way that you think and improve the way that you see yourself and the way that you show up in the workplace. Next thing is that, okay, you understand the value that you have to offer. How do you make sure that others also see the value in what you have to offer? So a lot of my clients are introverted, so it's not something that comes very naturally to us to start saying like, I did this, I did that, I helped move this by this percentage or whatever. So something that we typically start with is by starting in writing. A lot of times we think that communication can only be done by, you're communicating verbally, you're sharing information verbally, but a lot of introverts tend to excel by communication and writing. And I've seen this with many of my clients where they just start intentionally. They tell their manager like, hey, I want to be able to get to a place that when we have our performance review conversations every 6 months, I want to make sure that we have something tangible to be able to talk about based on the goals that we establish. So every month or every 2 weeks, I'm just going to drop you an email and I'm going to share the wins that I got for that month. If you respond or not, it's up to you. I know you're busy, but I just want to share that information with you so that by the time we have our conversations where we have stuff to work with. And there's no manager that's going to tell you, no, don't send that email. I don't want that email. All your managers are going to be like, oh yeah, wow, you're actually tracking your wins. Go ahead, do it. And so whether they respond or not, it's okay. But that exercise alone is going to help you as an individual to be able to track and to be able to acknowledge your wins. And then also on top of that, I've seen many times my clients do this, and what happens is that their managers start to pay attention more to what they're doing. Because in the day-to-day, when you're busy, you're not always, as a manager, paying attention, oh, this person did this person did that. But if you're intentional about communicating and sending that email, it's going to cause them to actually pause and read and realize that, oh, okay, this is where you're making an impact. So that's one of the ways that you can do it. Other ways is being intentional when you're in meetings. We all know there's those colleagues that they're on, like they feel no shyness, they feel no reservation of letting you know that they did the thing. Even if they didn't do it, they will take credit for someone else's work. I'm not telling you to become that person, but what I'm saying is that when there are opportunities to receive credit or to receive recognition for your work, don't be that person who's like, oh no, it was nothing. Oh no, it was a team effort. Oh no, we did. If you did the thing, you are the one who brought the result, acknowledge it, receive the praise. And then when you have the opportunity to share as well, share what you were able to do. So those are a few ideas.
Yeah, no, this is real good. I mean, track your wins, understand the value that you bring, and then now, after you do that, how do you make sure others understand the value that you bring, and then being intentional about how you show up, right? So
Exactly.
this is what I took
Good
down.
summary.
Yeah, no, I do this almost every day. So this is good. So this is just the image portion
Mhm.
of this. Okay, so now
Sure.
we're going to talk about exposure, but
Okay.
before we go to that, there are lots of comments.
Oh, okay. I haven't even been looking. Let
Yeah,
me.
yeah. No, so please leave your questions. We're going to try to get to the questions towards the end. So please, keep on leaving your questions and your comments. Now, just quickly, so many people are watching this from not just LinkedIn but YouTube and also Substack. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe, give it a like. If you're watching this on Substack, also do the same. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, do subscribe. And then one more thing, before we continue. If you're a PM and you're struggling with this job market, you're looking for help landing your next PM role, click on the link that you're going to be seeing below the video, and then let's see if we can help you. If we can't help you, we'll just give you free resources to help you with your job search journey. All right. Now back to the show. So Lissa,
Yes.
we were talking about like how to stand out as a, or how to how to stand out, because a lot of times quiet people get ignored. So how do you make sure that you stand out in a way that's really authentic to you as a quiet person? So I love the formula that you mentioned, the PI formula. P is for performance, I is for image, which we just talked about. So now let's go on to exposure. So how can we move the needle when it comes to exposure?
Yeah. So there are different approaches that you can take, but basically, as the approach that I typically teach to my clients is what I call the core 15 framework. And this is about who are the core 15 people who need to know who you are to be able to actually get the result that you're looking to get. So, for example, if you're job searching, who in your sphere are the 15 people who have influence but also are willing to help you to make that transition into whatever role that you're looking to get. And in the same place, if you're looking to get a job promotion or you're looking to advance within your organization, who is that initial core 15 that you need to focus on and build relationships with? And this 15 is typically because, we're thinking of large organizations. If you're working in a smaller company, the number may be lower. But also why 15 is because not everyone will be willing to help you. You may know some people who are very influential, but they don't want to help you or they don't have the time, right? So that also gives you some flexibility in case that you don't get the response you're looking for from one person or another. As introverts, we've determined this as through our conversation, we excel at one-on-one conversations. And so that's the strength that you want to be able to leverage to be able to build the relationships. Because if you know that going to a huge networking event or that holiday party or, after work drinks, whatever it may be, if you know those are the places that you don't like and that you don't show up well, that's not the place that you want to determine that, oh, I'm going to go there and I'm going to build relationships at the after work event. Like for me, if I only when I became a manager that I had to go to these events, because it's like you're part of leadership, so you
Right.
have to show up. But I would never go, because there's just, it's not for me. So I know that there's other people who are like that as well. So based on that, there are other people who are maybe more extroverted, more outgoing. That's their strategy. They make sure that they show up to that drinks or whatever they're doing, because they know, oh, there I will meet the VP, there I will do that. So for introverts, you shouldn't take that approach, because you're not going to succeed, because you'll drain yourself there. So the approach I teach my clients is that focus on those one-on-one interactions. You're starting a new job. This is an opportunity. Nobody knows you. Start making sure that people know who you are. You want to build relationships. Your let's say you're a project manager, program manager. You want to build relationships with your team, whoever is on the team, that you're kind of working with. How do you build relationships one-on-one with those people? Then you have to think of your counterparts. Who are the other project managers, program managers that you want to start building relationships with? And then also thinking of the person you're reporting to, and the person that they report to. So that alone, you should easily start finding 15 people there. And then you also want to think, okay, I'm a project manager, I'm working with stakeholders. I'll probably have external stakeholders that I have to interact with. How do I start building relationships with those people one-on-one? Even before we have those big meetings where everyone has to come together and start brainstorming, whatever. How do I make sure that I intentionally build those one-on-one relationships? Another example, how you can leverage the same framework, you're looking to get a promotion. A lot of times people think, okay, I'm looking to get promoted, so I'll just make sure that my manager knows that I'm doing a good job. And it's not every company that to get promoted, it's your manager who makes the decision about the promotion. So
Right.
you need to understand, what's the process in my company to get promoted. As I was saying, in my process in the government, it's a meritocracy. So it's based on a competition. They create a competition where different people at the same level compete for the promotion. But in your company, it may be a panel where executives come together and then they make a decision about the promotion. So first, you need to understand, what's the way to get promoted in my company. If it is the latter, where you need to get executives on board regarding your promotion, then those are part of your core 15. You need to make sure that those people know who you are. So when opportunities come up, or there is an opportunity for advancement and your name shows up, that your manager doesn't have to be the one doing the heavy lifting. These people already know who you are and are willing to vouch for you for that advancement. So yeah, that's one approach.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And just to add to that, so one of the things that I like to do whenever I come into a new organization, a new project, I just
Mhm.
schedule one-on-ones with
I
people
love that.
yeah, just and like you mentioned, one-on-ones, that's really how we excel,
Yeah.
because we're very good listeners. And what I found is, like, my one-on-ones, like, that's where I really find out what's going on with my project.
Mm.
Like, when we have the meetings and all that, it's fine, there's groupthink. But if you want to really know, like, how confident people are feeling and all of that, like, I really find out what is going on in one-on-ones. And another thing that I do, so at first, I use the excuse that I'm new, so I'm just
Yes.
like an introduction. So I do one-on-ones, like, everywhere. And for a lot of people, or for some people, you might not do another one-on-one,
Mhm.
but a lot of times what I ask is it okay if we do this recurring? So if it's somebody I know I'm going to be working with regularly, okay, I can suggest, is it okay if we do this every week? And it's like 15 minutes. Of course, with my boss it's like 30 minutes. But if it's other people that I know I won't be as in touch with them then I can say, okay, can we do this once a month or something? And just having that cadence, like,
Yeah.
that has really, I think that has really done wonders to my career,
That's
right? Because
amazing.
it's just there on the calendar. I don't have to think about it, because to start thinking about, okay, all right, because some people are just very good at keeping in touch with people.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those people, right? So, but just doing that initial one-on-one, and then now scheduling recurring, like, I found like that has done wonders for my career, right?
I love that. Are you sure you're not an introvert, Mukhtar?
That's
Because these are like, it's the same for me. It doesn't come to me naturally to remember that, oh, I need to follow up on this person. So
right.
yeah, recurring meetings, that's super helpful.
Yeah, yeah, no, amazing. There's so much good stuff there that I wanted to unpack, but let's pivot to job search. People that want to transition. So we've talked about
Okay.
how to excel, how to get promotions within your company. So what about people that are transitioning? First of all, as an introvert or as a quiet person, how do you go about maybe finding those opportunities that will be a good fit for your personality? Is it possible to do that?
Yeah. So, from my perspective, like if you search right now on Google introvert and career or introvert and job search, you will find list upon list of blogs and different websites that tell you these are the best careers for introverts. I don't. I don't believe in that. I believe that whatever your personality is, you can work in whatever work setting. It's just a matter of understanding your operating rhythm, like I call it. So it's not about the job title, it's just more about how you operate as a person. So I say that introverts can work in whatever job that they're passionate about, that they have the expertise for, but it's just about understanding. For example, if you're trying to filter through various roles, trying to better understand, okay, is this a kind of role that I'll have the opportunity and the space to be able to do deep work? Is this a kind of space where it's like fire drills, where everything is like, okay, everything is urgent, everything is due? Like, does the culture and the way that the company operates align with how you operate as an individual?
Right.
Just even how decisions are made. What's the culture around decision making within that organization, or what's the leadership style? I was going through the chat really quickly. I didn't read the full question, but someone said something like, if you're an introvert, but something about your boss. So those are some of the things that you need to consider. For example, when you're in an interview for a job search, if you know that there's going to be a clash based on the way that you operate and the way that your manager leads, or the style that of leadership, that already tells you that you may not function very well in this kind of environment. It may be excellent for someone else, but just based on who you are and how you function, how you operate, it may not work out for you. So those are the things you need to think about more. What are your non-negotiables when it comes to a job? And not necessarily, is this title or is this kind of career path going to work for me? Any of them can work. It's just a matter of finding the right environment and the right people that align with how you want to work.
Okay. And for a lot of this, would you say that you would find out when you are interviewing, or is it possible to
Yeah.
maybe? All right. Okay.
It
So
is possible to find out before. I would say that's why doing research on the company is really important. Like, some of these things start even before you get to the interview. When you see the job posting and you are reading through it, what kind of language are they using? When you search the company, you do research about the company. What is it telling you about the company culture? What is it telling you about expectations and how they treat people? Some of these things, even just scrolling through the company's social media, going through their website, going to the LinkedIn profile of their leaders. With AI now, you have so many different platforms that you can just do a quick search, ChatGPT, turn it on thinking, it's going to find you all the things on the company. Just leverage the resources you have available to you to do as much research as possible to actually decide, is this a role that I even want to apply for? Because sometimes it's not even, do I want the job? It's like, does this align with the kind of roles that I'm looking for right now? And that will save you also a lot of time and energy of putting into the whole process and then realizing later on that, oh, it's actually not a good fit. So yeah, there is some research that you can do beforehand, but depending on the company, sometimes it's only when you get the opportunity to actually talk to someone that you find out. So talking to someone doesn't have to be at the interview stage. Find people who work at that company. Find them people who have the same job title as the job title that you want, or who've had that job before. Ask them why they left.
Right.
Ask them how they feel about the company now. And the best place, people who've left the company, those are always the best people to talk to, because they have no, like, there's no attachment, and you'll get unfiltered information. They'll give you the inside scoop, whether it's good or bad. And yeah, that so research can span beyond just getting ready for the interview, but even in the process of applying for the role, and also making sure that you're talking to people who know that company.
Right. Okay. So how about this situation? So, I think there are some people that they have the luxury to sort of decide and choose environments. Like maybe you're
Mhm.
very specialized, you're an AI PM, cybersecurity, lots of recruiters will be looking for you.
Yes.
But many people right now have been laid off, and they're looking for, like, they will pretend to be an Apple. Whatever you need, I'm gonna be that. So
Yeah.
what would your advice be to somebody who's like they go on the website and they're just seeing
Mhm.
all these like events. There's a lot of pictures, events. Oh, we have we have beer every Thursday. We always go out partying together. So it's like a very, very extroverted environment.
Mhm.
And when somebody's seeing that, like they already feel drained, like just looking at the pictures, everybody happy, camping. What would your advice be to that person who needs to get that job, but is an
Yeah.
extrovert?
Yeah, I've been in spaces, like, there's been times in my career where I needed to pay the bills. I needed to just get a job because I needed a job at that time. I had responsibilities, I had things to do. So I'm never the person who's going to tell someone, like, "Oh, you have an offer, like, turn it down because it doesn't align with your this or that." I would say, if really you have to take that opportunity because you're a responsible adult and you have responsibilities that you need to take care of, sure. But if you take it with a plan, knowing that this is not a place that I'm going to stay forever. I'm giving myself 2 to 3 months. I'm continuing my job search, even if I take this role. And as soon as I get something else, I'm out. What I see a lot of times is that people will take that job that they know sometimes is not the best fit, but they'll take it maybe just for the pay or whatever it may be. And then they get stuck. And then it's like, oh, I took it temporarily, but then now I got busy, the job got this, that did, and then all the excuses start to pile up. And what happens? Frustration happens, burnout happens, and then you're putting your health and your well-being at risk because of a job. That's where you need to be careful in terms of how you're making those decisions. Because if you think about it, okay, you need the money now, so you're going to take any job that you know is not a right fit, but then you get sucked into that job, you're not able to search anymore, and then it leads to burnout or leads to whatever. Then you find yourself in a place where you can't work for many months because you made that decision to take the job, right? Or you found yourself in an environment that was toxic. So sometimes you do find yourself in a place, especially if you've been job searching and you have a strong strategy, the first offer may not always be the best offer. If you feel like you really have no choice, I'm not going to tell you don't take it if you need the money, but then don't make sure you don't get stuck there. Make sure that the job searching continues. And even if you go to that job for 2 weeks and you tell them, hey, I found something else, you move on to something else. If you can wait and give it another few weeks to keep searching, that's always the ideal, right? But in the current market, I understand. I understand. And I've totally been there myself, where I've taken a job that doesn't align because I needed the money. And I'm not, it happens. And sometimes that's what you have to do. So the only thing I would say is don't get stuck. Keep the search going so that you find something that aligns better.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So, and that's the strategy for an environment where that really doesn't align with your personality.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say, I, I hope this is not a wrong statement. Maybe like that would not be a majority. Like, so I would say, some like toxic environments that don't align with you, maybe that would be a minority of all environments. I think,
Okay.
so the other environments where it's like, okay, it's not perfect. Like in corporate America, corporate Canada, there is a bias towards extroversion because
Sure.
that's the way society is.
Yeah.
We sort of have to just develop strategies to cope and to thrive
Yeah.
in such environment. So what would your advice be to somebody who is in that kind of environment that sort of, just rewards extroversion?
Yeah.
So I guess, I hope I'm not answering my own question, but are we going back to what you mentioned before, like, ensuring that you have buffers between meetings, like, maybe having no meeting days, like, am I answering my own question? Do you have any
No,
questions?
I understand your question. So, I'll give an example. I had a client recently that I was working with, a VP, pretty big company in the US that he's working with. In his previous company, he was excelling. He's an introvert. He was doing really good because the company culture fit his personality perfectly. He would go to meetings and it would be okay for him to like let his managers or the directors speak. And then he changed companies recently and completely different environment. And now he got his performance review and his boss was telling him that he's too passive, he's not talking enough, because he was doing the same thing that he was doing in the previous company. But in this company, it's more of a culture that if you know what it is, like, why would you delegate to somebody else? You take ownership, you take authority, you need to be that person that speaks all the time in the meeting. You need to be that visible person. So same person has excelled tremendously in one environment, shifted to a different environment, and then all of a sudden what he was doing before is seen as too passive. You're not speaking up enough. So what do you do in those circumstances? So it's not like he wants to leave the job. He's doing well. He's doing well in the role. It's just the perception that the CEO has of him is different based on what he had in his previous environment. So some of the things that we started working on is paying attention to communication cues. So how do people typically, you're in a meeting, how do people typically interact? How do people typically communicate? A lot of times, as an introvert, you may be in the meeting, but sometimes what's happening is you're either thinking about what you're going to say. And so you're not always very much into the conversation because you're thinking, oh, this is going to be my opportunity to say something. And then you're thinking about what you're going to say. Another thing that sometimes happens is that you're in that meeting and you're thinking, but didn't this guy just say the exact same thing? Why are you repeating what he just said? And then you're thinking, oh, that everyone knows that. Why did you say that? So you're in a meeting, instead of thinking of how can I get the opportunity to be able to get my thoughts across, your mind is wandering and you have all these thoughts. And so instead of doing that, pay attention to the various cues that are happening. How do people actually communicate in this organization? When you get into a new culture, even when you go to a new country, right? You take the time to observe, you take the time to understand how do they do things here. So it's really important that you understand those communication cues when you get into a new space, and then see, based on how I communicate, how can I still make sure that I can get my voice heard even in this environment? Because being an introvert doesn't mean that you can't adapt. You can adapt to various environments. It's just a matter of understanding that environment and how do you position yourself for success within that environment. So I hope that answers your question as an example. So it's just to show that even if you are introverted, it doesn't mean that you can't adapt and be flexible to understand how to communicate or how to thrive in different environments. You just need to adjust the strategy.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I really like the example that you gave, because I think I've been in that situation, and I assume that many people, listening have been in that situation. So, like, in terms of practically speaking now, with that example, somebody, is a good performer. They're in this new environment and they are seen as too passive. They are not, as vocal.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to that person? Like, how can they change things? What would your advice be?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is it true? Because I've been in spaces where it's like, yes, you are, in the example even that I gave, when I was going through the coaching sessions with him, he acknowledged that, yeah, at some point I got too comfortable just sitting back and letting other people communicate, that I wasn't playing a role in meetings, and I did take a seat back. So there's that example. But I've also seen in my own career path, I had a manager at some point where she was just like, people that go talk so much that you go to a meeting, you're thinking, oh, this is a meeting where everybody's going to share ideas, and it can turn into a monologue of her just talking for the last 45 minutes, and everyone's like, okay, like we didn't get to say anything.
Right.
And so she would see how I would run my meetings or how I would interact with my team, and she would be like, "You're giving them too much liberty. You're allowing people to dominate over you. You have to be more assertive. You have to, For her, it was really about controlling people. That was her style of leadership, controlling, even to the point that it creates fear, where people were afraid of her. People were afraid to communicate around her. So I just want to give those two examples to give a distinction that is it actually true that there is something that you need to work on, or is it more a different culture or a different person that you're interacting with that may not understand your style of leadership? And sometimes that happens, and then there's a complete disconnect, right? And then the other thing is, if you determine, okay, is it true? Yes, it's true. So now how do you actually work on it? Being able to understand the environment, as I was saying, what kind of culture are you operating in currently with the organization that you're in? And then are there areas that you actually need to work on yourself in terms of self-development to be able to fill that gap? Simple strategies sometimes that you can use is just even having a framework to be able to communicate. Sometimes what happens is that people get so stuck in their head and they're not able to articulate their ideas properly. So what happens is that you choose just not to say something because you don't want to say something and then it comes out the wrong way, or that it doesn't align with how the conversation is going. Or other things that happen is that you wait so long to say what you wanted to say that when it gets to the time that you should have said something, it doesn't make sense in the context of the conversation anymore. So having communication frameworks are ways that can help you to just articulate your ideas more clearly, and also just in a way that people can understand. For example, the STAR method that we all, I'm sure, are familiar with when you go to an interview. Why does it work? Because it's clear. It articulates what's the situation, what did you do, and then what was the result. And if you want, you can add I, what was the impact? Or people have different variations of the STAR method. There's also CARL. So challenge, action, results, and learning. So same thing, but you add the learning to it. These are all communication frameworks that just help you structure your ideas so that when you get nervous or when you're feeling uncomfortable, you can just communicate clearly what you have to say in a structured manner. As you implement these communication frameworks, what tends to happen is they start becoming natural to you. It just becomes the way that you communicate, and it becomes very natural in your process. Like just like we've been going back and forth, and I was telling you, oh, great summary. It's natural to you. I'm sure at the beginning, maybe you had to think, oh, I'm taking notes and trying to pay attention to what the person says. But at some point, it became natural to you to do that. And so that's an easy way that in a meeting you can communicate. You've been taking the notes of everything everyone said. And as an introvert, maybe you don't want to have a new idea or you don't have anything to contribute. So you can just be like, okay, before we wrap up the meeting, guys, I just want to make sure that we're clear on what's coming next. So-and-so said this, da-da-da said this, and that's an easy way that you can get your idea across. So again, leverage your strengths. You have strengths, just make sure you know what they are and you leverage them.
Okay. And one thing that I just wanted to add there, so in terms of communication frameworks, another one that that I've heard that I like is the 3-2-1 communication
Yes,
framework,
it's a
right?
good
Because
one.
yeah, because sometimes it's like, hey, Mukhtar, what do you think?
Yes,
And you can be there in the headlights, you can ramble. So the 3-2-1 is like, just oh, there are three things I actually I can think about, and then you just list. You list and then you expand, list, expand. The other one is two. Okay, on the one hand this, on the other hand is this. Like, it's compare and contrast. And then one is like, oh, the one thing. And so these are like nice crutches, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome. So just one more thing in this situation. So in a situation whereby it's a clash of leadership styles or communication styles,
Mm-hmm.
how would you recommend that you handle that? So, your boss thinks that you're too passive, like you mentioned. You see yourself as just being like you're giving people space, you're empowering people, so you have a different communication style. What would your recommendation be to the person in that situation?
Yeah. So, it, trying to understand, is it only their perception or is it a perception across the board? Sometimes will help you to be able to determine, okay, is it really me or is it the environment? What do I need to adjust? So sometimes even just having conversations and better understanding even what they mean by passive, right? Well, that was one of the things that I did with that client when he got that feedback from his CEO, going back and actually clarifying, like, what specifically did you mean? And that's how we were able to understand that, oh, it's when he was going to meetings and he was letting his team speak on his behalf that the CEO saw that as being passive. So sometimes you could hear a comment, and because especially as an introvert, I'm sure you've been told many times in your life, you're too quiet, speak up, why aren't you saying anything? So those comments, when you hear them again, it's a bit of a trigger and you're like, oh no, not again, right? So don't jump to conclusions and start thinking that, oh, now I have to start talking everywhere, I have to start doing all the things so people can see me. It's not about like pretending and overdoing it, because what that will lead to simply exhaustion, and that's not sustainable either. Get clarity, get a better understanding of what the person means. It could be just one specific instance that they're referring to, and so with that clarity you can also make adjustments. And then the other thing I would say is that sometimes you typically you have those moments in your career that maybe there's other things going on in your life and that are taking a lot of your energy, and that you're not showing up as your best self at work, and that that's what's happening. And so that's maybe why you got that comment. Okay, this is a season that you're going through. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be that way, right? So sometimes also it's about giving yourself that grace to be able to understand that there may be other factors that are contributing to what's happening right now. And what may be necessary is taking some time off. What may be necessary is giving yourself that grace to go through that season. Or what may be necessary is better managing your schedule so that you can manage your time and your energy well. Again, going back to that same client, that was one thing. He was having meetings back to back every day. That was his schedule. So by the time, and usually he would meet his CEO in the evening. So by the time he would meet the CEO in the evening, he was tired. He was depleted, right? So how do you adjust the schedule so that you have buffers within your schedule to allow you to manage your energy accordingly? Even having transition time. So your energy from you're at home, you're at work, at home having to go to work, from work having to go home. All those are energy transitions that you have to manage, because sometimes what happens is you've had the whole day, your energy has been depleted. Now you get home, you have to deal with kids, you have to deal with this. So just having that awareness about your time, about how you operate, about your schedule, those are the best ways to be able to manage.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. All right. So we're going to go to questions now. So just bear with me while I go to lots of ambiverts. Shauna is an ambivert. Lakeisha, she interviews as an ambivert, but when she gets the job, she's an introvert. Nice.
I like that.
That's
I love
nice.
that she knows that.
This is great book, building on what Lissa said. Now, oh yeah, Quiet. Yeah, that was
Yes.
a really good book. Yeah, introverts. Let's see, Clinton Maddox. Yeah, someone says the PMP is definitely an extroverted role. I'm curious to know what other PMs think.
Would you agree with that, Mukhtar?
Using your definition, I would say, because the PM is somebody that gets their energy. Sorry, an extrovert is somebody that gets their energy from other other people. Like,
Hmm.
so I would say, yeah, maybe I would have a different opinion to that, because
Yeah,
it's not really about, are you talkative? Are you being, are you very comfortable in a social setting? Like, that's not really it. Is where you draw your energy from. So with that definition, I would say that, yeah, maybe I have a,
it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
different
fair
opinion.
enough.
All right. Let me go to the questions. By the way, if you have questions, just feel free to put them down. Yeah, lots of people talking about whether they are introverts or extroverts. All right. So this one is from Busisue. How do
Okay.
you deal with an unreasonable and difficult stakeholder as an introvert?
Yeah, context would be helpful, but I'll just give a general answer. And I think this is not even about being introverted or extroverted. It's just generally if you're dealing with someone who, there's some kind of conflict or it's there's some difficulty. Firstly, understanding what is the issue, why is there a disconnect, whether it's communication or whatever it may be. I would say that's the first thing that you need to get clear on, what's creating the tension. And then the second thing that I would say is being able to address it, typically through communication. Like if there is a disconnect, finding a time to be able to talk about how you're working together, um, especially like in a project management kind of role where you're dealing with different people from different places. I'm sure this is not the project management term for it. This is the wording we use in the coaching world. But you have to establish ways of working. Before you start an initiative, before you start a project, it's good to be able to understand how are we actually going to work together. And
Mhm.
part of that is also part of the work, right? It's not about what you're doing or the results that you're going to achieve. It's also the how you're doing it. And that's a conversation that a lot of people tend to skip in the workplace. They're so focused on the what we are doing, but then not how we are doing it. But if you're able to merge both together, that's typically when you get the best results. So be comfortable enough that if you're having a difficulty with a stakeholder, that you are able to address the how things are going and not just the what we're doing.
Sure, makes sense. All right, this is from Srikana. Thank you for your insights, Lisa. I would like to know, as a quiet PM, how can I network with PM professionals more often? What strategies to help build rapport outside of one's organization?
Yeah, I feel like project managers, you are all very blessed because there's like a whole association and organization called PMI that you can go to, and they have like structures and they have events in different cities, and there is already established like almost like frameworks that exist to allow you to network with other people who are in your industry. And not a lot of industries have that. At some point, I did consider becoming a project manager, just as a side note. That's why I did the research to better understand what it was. But it's really about leveraging what's already there. You don't need to create some new organization or some new group of PMs when it already exists, probably in your city as well. So finding where those meetings are happening and integrating yourself into those groups. Mukhtar has a community. Go into those groups and you'll find your people there, right? So I feel like for project managers, it's not that difficult. You can find your people.
Yeah, and another thing to add, like, forums like this is also a good way to meet
Mhm.
people. So I usually encourage people, like in the chat, just drop your LinkedIn URL and just have people connect with you. Like, these are opportunities to connect with people. So yeah, it's also a very good source, a good way to meet people. Let's see. LinkedIn user, when you first start a job, is it recommended to get to know your manager's boss for a meet and greet to build rapport and build visibility in the workplace for future promotions?
Yeah, I recommend it, especially depending on what your level is. You want to have a relationship with the person you report to and then the skip level as well, because at the end of the day, both will be influential in the decision making, especially if you're seeking promotions. So the more visibility you get, the more important it is. Obviously, you need to also understand the dynamics and the culture of the organization. But then when you first start a job, you don't know, and you can always take the excuse of I'm new. I didn't know. So you just set up the meeting, right? And if you're told otherwise later on, sure, whatever, but take that opportunity, especially in the first like 90 or 100 days, to build those relationships and make sure that people know who you are.
Yeah, no. A lot of times, like people would excuse you when you're new. The one thing that I just like to do is, because the most important relationship for me is the relationship with my manager. Like if
Mhm.
that's good, everything else, every other thing is good, right? So I usually make sure that I appear to be loyal and a trustworthy partner to my manager. So I usually run things by him. Okay, so I'm gonna be booking a call with X, Y, Z, and all of that. I just want to make sure that I get enough context and all that. And then if the manager says, okay, you know what, cancel that meeting, then I'll do it. you know. Um, but yeah, that's my style. Let's see if there are other questions. There are lots of comments. So sorry, I'm skipping the comments, just going through the questions. Okay, let's see. This is a question from Prashant. PM is 90% communication and not necessarily about energy. If an introvert PM can do this, then we can't say introvert. Then can't we say introverts can do PM jobs as well? Yeah,
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 totally.
for sure.
Um, okay, 90% about communication, not necessarily about energy. So and that's what I was saying. It's not about the job, it's about the individual. So it's more when we're talking about energy, it's more about yourself as an individual and not the job. And that's why I was mentioning that anyone can do any job that they're interested in, that they have the skills for, no matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. So I completely agree that yes, there can be introverted PMs. And I'm sure that there are many, since there's like we say that 50% of the population is introverted. So I'm sure there's a lot of introverted PMs.
Right. Oh, so it's 50%? 50%
It
are
is
introverted? Oh,
50%. Yeah. Yeah.
all right. And yeah, Kylie says, thank you, Mukhtar and Lisa. My takeaway is the pie formula. Easy
Nice.
to remember and focus on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was really good. I think that's one of my main takeaways. All right. So, Lisa, we are a couple of minutes over. Do you still have a few more minutes or do you need to drop off?
No, I'm good, I
Good.
believe. Let me double check.
All right.
Yeah, I should be good.
You should be good. All right. We're just going to do recommendations and then we can
Okay.
wrap up. All right. So, what's one book that you love or recommend?
Okay, I know somebody said quiet, and that's typically the book that all introverts talk about. A book that really helped me as an introvert, it's called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I hope that's how we pronounce the last name. And then a book I just finished this week that has really energized me is called 10X is Easier Than 2X by two authors. One is Dan Sullivan, but it's just both books talk about the fact that you can do less and still get better, bigger and better results. And I think as an introvert, that's always what I'm looking for. How can I have less meetings and still get to where I want to get? So, yes.
What's one app you love or recommend?
An app. I like my fitness app. So either Samsung Health or My Fitness Pal. Those are the two apps I'm probably on the most.
So you're an Android?
I am an Android user.
Nah. No, there's gonna be an Android versus iPhone war. Yeah. All right. Podcast. What's one podcast you love or recommend?
I only listen to one podcast, and it's not educational, so I'm. We don't need to. We don't
That's
need
fine.
to get
I
into.
thought you were gonna say PM therapy podcast, but it's all good.
Oh, of course, PM therapy. That is the one podcast.
What's one productivity hack that actually works for you?
A productivity hack is that I plan everything, and I feel like the more I plan my day and I have a better understanding of what I'm going to be doing in the day, it helps me manage my time and energy better. So just being able to plan ahead of time and like this kind of go with the flow, like those kinds of things, they don't work for me. So just being able to plan things in advance.
Okay. And do you normally plan the day before or the day off?
I plan my month and then I plan my week and
Mm.
then I plan the day the night before. So as the time gets closer, I make adjustments based on how things are going and feeling. So, yeah.
You sure you're not a PM?
I could be. Honestly, I considered it as a career path at some point.
When you're overwhelmed, what helps you the most?
I like to sleep. go go in my room, close the door, get an opportunity to just take a quick nap, and I'm much better after.
Amazing. Lisa, this was really nice. For people that want to connect with you and want to, reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Lissa, as you can see, with two S's. One S is silent. It's still Lissa Appiah. And my website, as you can see on the screen as well, is weapply.ca. I am on YouTube. If any of you are interested in learning more about quiet leadership, I have tons of videos on YouTube where I talk about my experience as an introvert and how to succeed in your career as an introvert. So those are the places you can find me.
Amazing. Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for making the time. This
Of
was
course.
really informative and insightful for me. And also, judging by the comments, I think a lot of people appreciated this. All right. Thank you all. Next week, we're going to be having another very interesting guest, and I'm looking forward to that as well. But yeah, until next time, you all take care of yourselves.
Awesome. Take care, everyone.